if and even if it's just, Ramsey and Aaron, how long have you guys been in the space? If you're watching this on social media, if you're seeing this on Facebook, again, I don't have a whole lot of optics right now that I can see, and I'm probably going to get the hang of, this monitor that I'm looking at right now. I'll start, getting the hang of it as we progress further into this discussion, and it's going to get smoother. I promise you that. But how many of you guys have been in the space for, let's say since at least 2017, and maybe, just post the year that you got involved in the space, or that you started learning, a little bit about it, maybe the first time you really got involved. So Aaron, I see what you posted there since 2017. That's awesome. Ramsey, 2 months ago. Honestly, I love the contrast between you two. It couldn't be better. Randomly, both of these guests I actually know through the Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership. So, they operate, I would just say, they operate at a very high level. The cool thing about it for you guys, and Aaron, you can probably give testimony to this, but you've been through Date with Destiny, you've been through Unleash the Power Within, some of these events where, we get a lot of extra training that I think a lot of people don't have with regard to at least, doing a bit better than we used to when it comes to controlling our emotions, understanding our emotions. I used to really not have a clue at how important it is to understand your emotions. So, So Ramsey, you heard quite a bit about the space in 2017. Okay, yeah, 2017 was a massive bull run. We saw some crazy things happening. If you're here, you guys are the only two I can see as far as just the private chat. We may need to toggle back and forth. Like I said, we'll figure this out. But if you're here and you're just really kind of getting started, in the space, you're learning about it, you're curious, you're like, what's blockchain? Somebody asked me a little bit earlier. You're like, what's DeFi? I have no idea what he's talking about. It's like speaking Greek, and what was the other one? And just digital currencies in general. Like, what's their intrinsic value? Do they have intrinsic value? How in the world can somebody, really tie Bitcoin to gold in the same sentence? Bitcoin is like electronics. Gold is like tangible from, mining. Well, Bitcoin is mined in its own way, right? For those of you that are familiar with Bitcoin. So it's really a very interesting space. I will say that very recently, literally today, I was just kind of doing what I do on a daily basis, and I found that Bitcoin was actually outperforming gold by quite a bit, very, very recently. So it's going to be interesting to see if we see those market caps, change as far as the way that they are when you compare them, Bitcoin related to gold. Right now, I think Bitcoin, last I saw, was somewhere in the neighborhood of $385 billion market cap, right? Gold is like in the multi-trillions. Gold has been around for, hundreds and hundreds of years. The world has used gold as a standard for trade. Bitcoin has been around like 11 years. And, it was started by a guy that disappeared, after a short while. Nobody knows who he is. We just know he created this monumental, life-changing, revolutionary system of, keeping track of currency on a digital, immutable ledger. And so as you learn more and more and you dive into Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, and as you dive into, just learning more about Bitcoin and the halving and, other altcoins and the different things that are going on, it's a rabbit hole that's just super interesting. And like I said, it really has no basis for comparison to stocks from an investment standpoint. Yes, Amazon is a great stock. Yes, Tesla is doing some amazing things. I catch a little bit about stocks, here and there. In our world, we had a project called Swap that 20x'd. I'm getting that feedback again. We have a project that literally 20x'd since July. Like, this literally came out early July, and it's worth 20 times today what it was worth in early July. Like, I think more than that. We had another project, BAM Protocol, went up 15x, from the time that I found out about it, just literally like a month ago, and now, of course, these projects that really take off and skyrocket, they become very popular. Lend, Aave is the ticker for it. I mean, this thing, I was talking to a guy on my real estate team, because I have a real estate team here in the San Antonio area. My buddy Jonathan, if he's on here watching, I know he's not heavy into crypto, but he told me he's accumulating, so he's pushing forward, and I think he's got a little bit of belief in him, which is awesome. We were talking about it when the space in general was really, really low, and I was like, I'm going to pick up some Lend, and it was literally 0.005 cents. It's like it was a half a penny. So I've picked up that particular project anywhere from 14 cents, and then I saw it fall. I saw my investment plummet for anything that I had picked up at 14 cents. So that's why I kind of come back into emotions, right? And I would say, Aaron and Ramsey, you guys post if you can, even in the private chat. I'll kind of explain what you say. But let me know, Ramsey, I know you said it was 2 months ago. I feel your passion. I feel your interest when I see you asking questions in Digital Investor and, jumping into exchanges. And I want to kind of talk about your exchange question that you had asked about earlier. But Ramsey and Aaron, tell me, like, when you watch these coins go up and then go down, regard to their valuations on a daily basis, let me know, what do you think? Do you think emotions have a lot to do with what you decide to do? I'm just kind of curious. Let's see if you guys answer. And again, if you're on social media and you can post, I'm hoping that we'll be able to get it to where I can see anybody that's commenting, because right now, like I said, I just have no idea. We're getting some, like I said, some technical stuff figured out. But are you guys on where you guys can post emotions and what kind of roller coaster it's put you on? Let's see. Ramsey, volatility memory exists from stocks. For some reason, I grounded myself when I came to crypto. I love it. If you start from a place of being grounded, it's a very good place to be. You have to be able to look and just kind of understand that, you're up by 10%, like the Bitcoin you had yesterday is worth 7% more today. You have to be able to, in some cases, show up and go, wow, the Bitcoin that I had, again, this is taking trading out of the picture. This is just for people that buy it and they're just holding it. There's traders that do other things, and we talk about that a bit more in Digital Investor and some of the other people and groups that I'm in. So I'm glad to talk about that a little bit as we go into the interviews. But long story short, emotions are so important. Your Bitcoin may be worth 12. What was it? It was like worth roughly 12,400 very recently. 2-3 days ago, went down to 11.6. And if you own a lot of Bitcoin, then your total cumulative balance is literally ebbing and flowing with the market. So we're going to talk a little bit about diversification within the space. We'll talk a little bit about altcoins, and we'll kind of see, where this goes when I bring some guests on, which I think will make it a little more interesting than just me talking. Let's see. Ramsey just came at it with a new paradigm. I think that's great. The move to Binance allowed me to set limit orders and live the rest of my life. Yes, yeah, and there's more. So we're gonna go further into that in Discord. And as we do, the mastermind, and we go further, and I take time away from real estate, to push into just really, really delving into it. I want to show you, even better ways to improve your life, better stop losses, tools that are even stronger than what you have access to in Binance. And Binance, honestly, probably has tools that are a lot stronger than what people are used to in Coinbase. So with that being said, I do want to tell you that I'm going to bring on a guest. I think now is probably a good time because I can ramble for quite a while. And I think that we'll bring on, who's ready? Is it Aaron or Ramsey? Either one, whichever one you guys want to come on. I'll be able to hear you. It's kind of interesting because I'm listening through audio, and then my Apple iPods didn't pair up quite, in time. I would be wearing the Apple iPods right now, but they didn't pair up quickly. So I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready to speak with Ramsey. And it's just, I wanted this to be informal because this is our first one. We're testing some things. We're streaming. We're testing a lot of what the StreamYard program has to offer. And I'm excited to just kind of delve into a little bit of uncertainty. And, you know, if somebody's interested in the space, now I can see you guys, I think, publicly. If you do, if you actually do sign on to StreamYard, I'll be able to see your name. I think if you
Facebook too, make sure you can see the Facebook comment.
Can I see their name regardless? Okay, cool. So it used to be that if you logged into StreamYard, I'd not be able to see you, but now I can. So awesome. I see a few people already that had said a few things. Ramsey, I see you. I see you're muted. Feel free to jump on and let's just chat and, you know, go where the wind blows us.
Good seeing you, man. Thanks for having me on today.
Can I get him a little higher?
Can you hear okay? I don't have headphones. How about now? I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
There I go. Now, yep, I can. Can you hear me?
I can't hear him now.
Radio
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool.
Very loud.
Thanks for having me on, man. Good to see you.
I can't hear him, Ruben. Now let's try it.
Okay, how about now? Radio check.
Yep, I hear you.
Perfect. Good seeing you, man. How you doing?
Now I can't hear him. There's a delay.
All right. So
Let me get one second.
one at a time. So whenever he talks, just give it a second.
Okay, the delay. Okay, so he just said there's a little bit of a delay. So whenever I talk, I'll wait a minute, and then I'm sure I'll hear what you have to say. Sorry about that, but let's go for it. I think it's because it's streaming.
No worries. It's like a sat phone.
Totally a sat phone. I can hear you. To the space, 2 months ago, and you have developed quite an interest. Tell me about the adventure, problems you've run into. What is it that got you interested in the first place? Because you and I had spoken for like an hour, whatever it was, maybe a year ago at this point. Time flies sometimes for me. But I kind of knew, where you were at and just the things you were doing, career. I mean, we talked a little bit about a lot of things. And I was just kind of curious, like what piqued your interest to come into the cryptocurrency space?
So the main thing was the exposure in the Platinum Partnership, just hearing what other people were going through, the finance trip. Monica, actually, my wife Monica, she actually went to it, so she was giving me some feedback. And just watching, I've always been a person that asks questions. I've always been a person that kind of like, okay, I hear what you're saying. Let me go and just cross, my own little system of cross-checking information. And we're just seeing events go on around the world, seeing events go on in, different economies, seeing events go on with regards to the use of money, understanding how money really flows in the currency process in the world, and seeing that this is going to be something that it's like an inevitability, and you can either get on board with it early and take advantage of the opportunity, or you can be one of the folks in the middle of the bell and experience it then, or you could be, a late adopter. And so we were talking about it, and we didn't have any money back in 2017 when we were learning about it. We had no assets to invest during that time. So we kind of put it on hold, watched everybody kind of ride the wave. I think it went up to something like 19 grand or something crazy like that. So when it hit that peak, we were both looking at each other going, well, it'd be nice to have money right now to do that. Anyways, back to our regularly scheduled program. So we kind of let it die down, and then a couple of months pass, and more interaction with the rest of the Tony Robbins crew, and now, with COVID was a great leverage, speaking of just using terminology from that experience, it's great leverage to put people in a place where you got to make a decision, you got to take action. And for us, it was, let's make a commitment, get in there. It doesn't need to be, we mortgage the whole house to do it. Let's just kind of like throw what we got in there and watch it. And I was starting to notice, more activity. Thankfully, I mean, just want to say I appreciate your shepherding this whole process along of like collectively raising the tide, so to speak, for all people's knowledge, and being the front man for that, because it was hearing what other people were doing, and not just hearing it and kind of following sheepishly, which I think happens often in any market, but hearing it and then going, okay, what does that mean exactly? And because it was so new, it didn't have any familiarity to me. So I just said, you know what? I don't know shit. I need to ask questions. And it just put me in a place where, you really have to check your ego at the door, because you're watching the volatility of it and going, I know this is, you got to jump in sometime, but is this the right time to jump in, or this not the right time? So in order to build your own level of certainty, asking questions. And that's where, when you started reaching out to people, I was like, you know what? I don't know anything about this. I want to learn. And just watching how fast, if you are, and I don't want to minimize cryptocurrency, but one of the things that I find interesting is there's a event that happens at my son's school, and it's like a fundraising event, and the fundraising event is a casino night. And so they actually invite real people who go to do, they're like real dealers. They roll in, they have all their equipment, but we use play money. And one of the things I notice is that I always gravitate towards roulette. In roulette, it'd be most people who gamble, they're like, there's no way I would do that. Those are the worst odds. Why are you doing that? You should do craps, or you should do blackjack. But I play roulette in a very, very structured, very process-oriented way. And I make lots of money doing it every time I go to that event. And I always accumulate real fast, because I played with a very specific discipline, and I don't get crazy with it. And when I start drinking, and you start involving alcohol in it, then it goes sideways real fast, right? But when you do it structured, you have a process, you can actually really benefit tremendously and make a lot of gains. And so I was noticing in your language, I was noticing some of the charts that you were showing. I was noticing how you're referring to things. I was kind of seeing the interactions from other people, but I was realizing, there's got to be like a system or structure to this, where you can take advantage of it and make some kind of gains from it. But I don't understand this stuff yet. So I need to, take a step back and be a little bit more patient. So that's actually the whole evolution from 2017, just being a lurking person in the shadows, to starting to move out into 2020 and asking questions. So
it had to be interesting to be watching people, especially if you knew anybody who was truly participating, and then just kind of seeing this thing that I remember crypto got a hold of me at one point, like more than now, from a discipline standpoint. I remember laying in my bed, looking at charts and looking at like on my smartphone, and I'm like, Bitcoin's 950, and like I'd hop out of bed and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick some up, and looking back, it's so crazy that we're only, what is it, like maybe 60% of all time high, which is, like you said, right around 20,000. And now it's back up to, about 12, give or take. We're kind of gravitating around 12. So I can tell you that for me, there was just always this little underlying FOMO, no matter how much, crypto I had accumulated, no matter what my positions were. I just kind of looked at it like, there's not enough, so it's really, to me, one of the coolest things about this space is that you kind of really get a super high level of self-awareness on where you are with fear, where you are with greed, and how it impacts your ability to execute. Like, can I sell when I know it's the right thing to do? Can I buy when I know it's the right thing to do? When all logic says this is the move I should make, and I have, in my case, I have 4 or 5 different indicators and metrics, of different tools. Maybe I've had people, and it just like public sentiment, everything is lining up. And then you're like, why am I still having trouble clicking the sell button? Or why am I still having trouble, So I really had to move to, fixed percentages and stop losses and creating a plan to, to make sure that trading went successfully, more often than not. Because in 17, and I'd like to share this with the world, so I'll talk about it here. I made a number of mistakes in 17. I invested $10,000 in each in a number of ICOs, which stands for initial coin offerings. And what was funny is one of the ones that I invested in, I found out very recently, actually has value. There was one that I had sold out of. I did fairly well on. I didn't sell at the peak or anything like that. It was one called DBET. Came out a while back now. It's much, much lower than it was. So I'm super thankful I got out of that one. The whole scope of the project and what they are doing, completely changed. The team that I signed up to because of, changed. And so, I totally understand, things change in business. And so for that reason, I jumped out, made a little money. That was good. But it went down real low. And I could name off a few that my investment went down 95%. So when I consider some of the things I learned from Keith Cunningham, who I'm sure you study a bit too, just being in the space that we're in, he's like, turns out the secret to getting rich is not, doing a bunch of smart things. It's just doing less dumb things. And so
That's right.
I took one of his, blocks of instruction for what to do. And he's like, if you just go back and you look at your top 5 financial mistakes over the past few years, you'd be surprised at, how expensive they really were. And so participating in some of those ICOs without knowing what I was getting into at such a high level, was one of them. And then I looked at the smart things I did. But I've learned so much about myself emotionally. So I want to touch on that because I think, if you can't handle, the highs and lows of emotion and, not let it influence the way that you execute, I don't think this space is going to be good for you. It's going to be challenging to do well and make money. I think people that have challenge with emotions ultimately will sell at a low and buy at a high, and they'll chase green candles, and they'll find justification to basically implement a strategy that just loses, and make decisions that lose. So to me, emotional mastery is such a huge part of it, which is why I want to continue to touch on that, in the group that we're in and so forth.
Yeah.
So with that being said, you had a question about exchanges earlier, I think, in the group. What was it you were having challenge with? And I'll try to answer it if I can publicly.
So what I was doing was, I think probably like a lot of other people. So, crypto moves into my scan. It's in my radar now. So I'm like, well, how do you facilitate this? This is not something that you can go buy on E-Trade or TD Ameritrade. So when I was looking at the terminology, the hard wallets, soft wallets, I was like, what? Investopedia was great here for anybody that's learning. So went in there, figured out what was going on, did some Google searches about which wallets are the best. And they, probably a lot of advertising dollars, but a lot of volume of first timers going to Coinbase. So in there, I was noticing it was weird because I was like, damn, crypto just goes all day long. It's 24/7. And when I had that awareness, I also started to notice that there was a lot of really freaking awesome buying opportunities when I was sleeping. Like I would wake up and I'd see this massive spike either south or north. And I'm thinking to myself, now how could I, oh yeah, that's right, there's limit and stop orders. So then I went looking on for that element on Coinbase, not existent. So that's when I started reaching out and saying, hey, anybody know of a better platform to do this on where you can actually, put safety traps in place so that you don't lose your shorts, but you can also take advantage of stuff. So that's how I got to Binance. Went through their whole like triple super duper retinal scan, authentication process to set up an account there. So now it's just I'm in the process of moving stuff over from Coinbase into Binance, crypto to crypto. But yeah, it's like, and the funny part is I'm doing all this while raising 3 young kids and also working on an MBA. So my hair is like totally on fire. And when you guys are such an awesome source of info where I can just like learn rapidly, like just in time information and feed my brain and then move to the next thing, whatever that next thing, whatever that fire is I'm trying to put out in the moment. So really appreciative.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. This monitor is out, Ruben, by the way. So I totally agree with that. I'm glad you touched on that because, so I have a 6-year-old. I run, some stuff in the real estate world. I manage a couple of crypto portfolios. I've kind of limited, what I'm doing on different exchanges. I have some where that's just going to sit there. And then I have some, active trading. One of the things that I've done now, if this helps you, is to diversify, my accounts. I already had kind of, one account that was more like, I'm just going to hold these funds. These are projects I believe in. I think you have to check on them regularly, rebalance. You have to kind of measure, what's going on fundamentally. Are there challenges, flaws? Is there any reason that I need to not hold this anymore? But short of that, there's just some projects that, it's like if you were investing in Amazon in, 2000 and you believe that's what you're doing, only it's through tokenization. And, you want to hold it for a long time because you believe this is going to be a great return on investment. I think there are those projects that just feel very solid. And some of them, quite a few of them have withheld they've kind of held on, through the bear market since 2016, 2017. We're seeing, I held a lot of tokens from a project called VET. I've held tokens, that I've bought at various times through a token called ICX or Icon. And, those are just huge market cap tokens that they may not grow as exponentially as some of these smaller ones that we find that are small market cap coins. But just, for the purposes of this example, they're tokens that I just kind of like had put into a hold wallet and I've accumulated and I've kind of dollar cost averaged in. And, there's also, redistribution on some of these. One of them just went through like a redistribution where, one day you're paying $300 for one token. And, like within a few days, they're dividing that token up to where now you own 100 of those tokens, but they're valued at $3. And it's your responsibility to get educated and to be educated on the fundamentals of the things that you're investing in. And that happened with me with VET, a long time ago. I had to keep track of, the change from VEN, which ends with an N, to VET, which ends with a T. Okay, this has changed. The ticker is different. That's interesting. And then, at one point, I already forgot because it's been so long, but at one point, it was kind of the same thing. It was like I had thousands of VET, let's just say. And then it went to where I had 600,000 VET. And it wasn't that I bought a bunch. It wasn't that I got airdropped a bunch. It was that, this token was just, chopped up in a way that now the denominations are smaller. So keeping track of that stuff is really interesting. And knowing, I think a big part of it, is just knowing, I heard somebody say this today, like let your winners win, because there's a lot of people that get out at 10X thinking that that's all a coin could possibly have in it because they're so used to traditional gains, which is, play the stock market or, S&P 500 probably more appropriately. And they're looking at a 10% gain over the course of a year. And they're like, this is solid. If I have 10% gains over the course of a year, over a decade, I'll have this much money. And this is a great place to put some money. And stocks are still considered risk bucket, like based on our education. And so, this is, in my opinion, super high risk. But the crazy thing is I don't know what parts of this video maybe didn't make it in, or if I mentioned this already. About 60 seconds of me talking at the very beginning got cut out. But I was just kind of talking about the difference between, some of the best stocks, like the Apples and the Teslas, versus, you know, some of the finds and the hidden gems that we find in the cryptocurrency world. And, you know, one of the examples, I ran through two of them, you know, literally like in the past 45 days, I don't think it's been longer than 45 days. We had one that was identified as a 15x. Didn't know it was going to, you know, what it was going to do, but it was a 15x. It was banned protocol. And then we had another one that was just popped up, you know, in July. I didn't get in on it, you know, and it's scary to get in after it's 20x. You really have to do your research. But we had another one, Swap, that did a 20, you know, over 20x since, you know, like literally July 10th. And so you're just like, I think it was 40 days, you know, that it's done this much. So to me, I feel like if we are heading into a bull market, which is just personal opinion, I think you'd find, you know, that it's the opinion of a lot of people who are the most educated on the space, that we're probably headed into a bull market. And, you know, it's one of the rare opportunities that if you play the game correctly, you truly can, you know, 10x to 100x your net worth, you know, as crazy as that sounds to say publicly. But I do want to add the disclaimer, because I think this is only fair, that if you don't have emotional control, if you do sell at the lows and you do buy at the highs, and, you know, you chase green candles and you don't know how to trade, and, you know, you pick the wrong coins, you don't do the research on fundamentals, you just pick what somebody told you to pick, that you can absolutely lose a lot. And I'm sure we'll go into that. Aaron and I will probably talk a bit about that, because I know that, you know, in 17 we had some losses, some of which I shared with you. So that's kind of, in my opinion, the difference. Now, coming from stocks, you know, what do you feel? Amy, do you feel that's pretty accurate, or what do you feel are some of the differences? Because I've never really been huge into stocks the way I am with crypto.
I feel it's like crypto is like stocks on steroids. Like the movement and the ability to like really create a lot of the emotion. Hold on, please. And this is Dash 2 right here. So it's like stocks on steroids, and it really fires up your limbic system of like survival and also greed. And so you gotta hold on to you know, what's your base, what's your core, what are you trying to accomplish, and you know, use a game plan. Like I think before, a lot of times, you know, stocks, people would say, oh, you should do this, you should do that, and people kind of jump in it, and the movement in stocks is not as wild as it is in crypto. And so most people, they feel more comfortable actually doing that. But in crypto, if you do that, you can really lose a lot, you can really gain a lot. So from that perspective, the potential for way more emotional loss and emotional irregularity exists, just in my personal opinion. Maybe other people think differently, but that's how I viewed it. A lot of that has to do, again, with the amount of certainty that you have with regards to your knowledge, to your skills, your access to information, and just creating a system that helps you facilitate the information you need to feel comfortable about what you're doing. I think is probably the most critical thing.
Yeah, and you know what? That's really kind of the purpose of what I want to do in Discord. You know, in an ethical way. You know, to the people that I have, let's say, obligation to, and at the same time, just being able to pool all the, I guess, the aggregate and be an aggregator where I can take a project that I think will do really well based on every filtered source I have, and then, you know, give it to that group and say, hey, you know, everything's high risk when it comes to alts, you know, altcoins in the cryptocurrency space, but I have one. It's a low market cap coin. It's under 10 million, and, you know, or whatever low market cap would be considered, because 100 million may be a low market cap coin here in a year. But right now, let's just say it's under $10 million market cap, you know, whatever the price is, whether it's $3, whether it's a nickel, whether it's 0.007, you know, but just to be able to give it to the community, and we all jump in at whatever level we feel comfortable. And I'd love to see us, you know, experience that 20x, or, you know, whatever it ends up being. One of the things that came up today was, like I said, the concept of let your winners win. And if we compare this to 2016, 2017 last year, or last bull market, I think this is very, very similar to 2016. It's like that bear market alt pump. And I say that because we're seeing the alts pump. We're seeing 20Xs, 15Xs, 10Xs, like all over the place. And at the same time, Bitcoin is only at 60% of all-time high. So we're not really at the point in the cycle where Bitcoin crosses over its previous all-time high, and then we encounter the second altcoin pump, which is just truly madness. Right now, we're riding the DeFi pump. So right now, it's like things don't even have to make sense for DeFi coins to pump. Like Curve was a project that just came out, and their launch was completely botched, and they literally got hacked, and they like admitted that essentially the hacker got their keys and had the right access information, and then like caused them to launch. And this went out on Twitter, and people are still buying it, and it's still like the CEO of Binance, CZ, had to come out and actually like issue a warning. Now, whether it's him manipulating the market in his own way, I don't know. But there's a few people that I think just kind of fundamentally stepped in and said, Curve is a little fishy given everything that's going on. And that's just one random example. And I think that's the difference in this market and stocks too, is if you think about stocks, Jamie Dimon, CEO of Chase Bank, wouldn't have been able to get away with what he got away with, a couple years back when he stepped out into the public light and said Bitcoin is a fraud, just flat out said Bitcoin is a fraud. And then you see the price of Bitcoin plummet, whatever it was, 35%, I forgot what it was. And then so that's what, we who believe in the space call a dip. And that's a really nice dip. And if you're holding it and you're worried about your losses, that's one thing. But if you're looking at it as a long-term investment over the course of years, and you're looking at it as a great entry point, well, he kind of did us a favor. But I think if he would have done that, and then later it came to light that he had purchased like a ridiculous amount of Bitcoin at a discount, from what I understand in the stock market world, like you go to jail for doing that sort of thing. You get in trouble for manipulating when you're in that type of position. So that's the crazy thing about it, is we get our hands on articles. Article came out from a company called Zeus Capital out of Hong Kong, I believe it is, said a bunch of bad things about Chainlink. Chainlink was affected, at least temporarily, and they still have this ongoing battle. And I know Chainlink is down from its current high, which was about $20, but it's I think it's been the top performing altcoin of 1920. So it's pretty crazy. And I remember Jake, who kind of moderates that digital investor group with me, had mentioned Chainlink to me back when it was like $1.97 or something like that. And some people got in at 60 cents. And I think that's like you said, there's massive value in saving people time and cutting right to the chase of filtering out really, really strong projects where people can land, a 20X, or over the course of time, even if it's like a year or two, land 100X projects. And so people wonder, why in my world, why do you go and spend so much time on crypto and not focus on real estate? Like real estate agents can make like, whatever they make. I don't know, a top performing realtor can make this much. And I'm like, there's no other space in the world where you can 100X your net worth, like crypto, if you know what you're doing. Because again, you can absolutely lose it. So that's kind of where my passion comes from. And then I think secondly, I'm just really enjoying connecting with people like you and Aaron, who I'm going to bring on in a second here, and just kind of changing people's perspective, because I agree. I think it's the future of money. And there was a company that just bought $250 million worth of Bitcoin and said, we're going to keep our liquid assets in Bitcoin because we think it's smarter than cash. I forgot the name. It was a public post we put in the group. I think Jake put it out. I'll get it for anybody who wants to know. But at any rate, when a massive company that's, a digital intellectual company like that spends that much money on Bitcoin, it's a really interesting place to be. And again, it's outperforming gold, which nobody would have thought that. Yeah. But I think this past, few days for sure.
Yeah, totally.
So I appreciate you, man. I don't know if you have anything final words to say to anybody that might be watching or watch it later, but I'm going to bring Erin on too and chat with her a little bit in a similar fashion.
No, man, thank you for the opportunity. I love it. I'm learning, and sometimes when you get kind of long in the tooth, you kind of feel it's. I shouldn't say that. It's easy to feel like you got everything suitcased. This is so like brand new information. You really have to go into it feeling humble and learn. And I would encourage anybody because I know there's some people that are in a similar position as I am, to just ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Just that's how you can learn much quicker by just getting over yourself, asking questions immediately.
The funny thing, if you have the means to purchase cryptocurrency and like play in that space, I mean, that means you have a computer, you have, certain things, and you're probably a blessed individual in the grand scheme of things anyway. So, to be able to dabble in this space and connect and grow our wealth and really grow ourselves, because nothing has challenged me in life as, at least not lately, as much as cryptocurrency, emotional turmoil, learning, understanding, logic. I've had to read multiple books that are this thick just to learn, the things that I, am endeavoring to learn that I'm still not a pro master at. And if anything, I get a lot out of it when it comes to just, truly like learning about myself and mastering self. Yeah. I mean, I need and enjoy meditation more. My chi revitalizer that I have at the house, you put your feet in it and it just kind of makes them, your feet go back and forth, and it truly just brings your chi back. I'm huge on, health and supplements and just doing all these things to take care of my body, because, if you just live crypto or business or whatever, and you don't balance it with some sort of like, healthy routine for mind, body, soul, nutrition, you will probably, collapse through a heart attack or, something at some point. And on top of that, no matter how much money you make, you'll have a life that is truly like less, just not as good a quality of life as you could possibly have if you just do these things to take care of yourself. So
yeah, man.
I really appreciate you coming on, man. And if Erin's ready, we'll chat with her, and I hope you watch some of the rest. Hey.
Okay, can you hear me now?
It's just like that phone commercial. Yes, yeah. So I hear you with a delay, and I have an echo. And this is mostly for Ruben, because I know he's fixing it. He got it fixed pretty good for me and Ramsey.
Okay, good.
So if everybody can hear me, I just want to say this is my friend Erin. Erin's been in the cryptocurrency space since 2017, she had mentioned. We talk a lot. She's in our Discord group, seeing some of the wins in there. We've got some nice midterm wins. We had some short-term wins, and she's seen, I think you've been in the digital investor group since the beginning. For anybody that was in since the beginning, I mean, if they actually executed on the calls or, the posts, where we had projects in there, I think many of them, now granted, it was lifted by the market to some degree, but many of them went anywhere from 40%, 60%, or doubled, So I kind of calculated, and I figured people should be 400% up or so from the inception of the group. But again, not everybody's going to execute on these trades, because every single one of them will take an emotional decision to be made to do it. And so, going and putting, $5,000 into this coin or selling it at the right time, it becomes one of the hardest things in the world to click that mouse button. So, Erin, tell me about your experience, just wherever you want to start, whatever you think will benefit people the most.
Oh, sure. So my husband and I learned about cryptocurrency when he went to the Whistler trip in 2017. So he comes out of the event. I didn't attend the event, but I was there in the hotel with the kids. I have a 10-year-old and a son and a 6-year-old daughter. So he said, we have to buy this stuff called Bitcoin. I'd never heard of it. It was $800. So I immediately think $10,000. Let's take a $10,000 investment into Bitcoin. And I was just calculating because that would have gave us quite a few of them. So I was trying to figure out how to do that. And this is where the emotional part actually began for us, because we didn't know what to do. I found somebody who knew somebody and they were going to help us buy some. So we get done with the trip, we head back home, and this is where it gets a little interesting because time is going by and we're watching it. It's now $2,000 and it's now $3,000. So we're like, we've got to get in. This started the fear of missing out in the beginning, like very early on. So it's $800 and we're watching it go to $3,000 and we missed out already. How is it possibly going to get any more? You know, how is there any more in this coin? So we find a friend, and so I've done so many things the non-optimal way. I won't say the wrong way, but the non-optimal way. So we found somebody that we went to UPW with, and he was involved in USI Tech. So this sounded really great. He's going to help us buy the coins. We buy the coins on Coinbase. So we learned how to buy coins. So we bought 3 or 4 Bitcoin around $3,000, $3,500. And we started to dabble in buying like Litecoin and Ethereum. I was so excited. So we bought a little here, a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. And the USI Tech idea was going to be great. So I cashed out of a couple funds that we had, and we bought, this is kind of painful to talk about, but we bought about $8,000 worth of this stuff, and we sent it over there because its whole process was going to be that as Bitcoin grew, it was going to pay us back dividends like so much every day. So to make a really long story short, the company went out of business and took our Bitcoin with it. So that was really hard. Then we're like, okay, no big deal. We're just going to keep going. We're going to earn some more money. We're going to start this over again because we believed in the whole idea of it being the people's money. So it's something that the governments didn't have control over, that it was going to be, this was our whole idea was, wow, this is really cool. This is a whole new world. And at the same time, we had met somebody, the Tony Robbins is incredible for this, but we met an investor who had been in Wall Street. So he said, make sure that you don't invest any money in crypto. So this was back in 2017 that you can't or shouldn't afford to lose. So if you were going to go out for dinner and you're going to spend $60 to $100 or you know, you have $25 a week, if you can take that money and you can just throw it away, he said, put it in crypto instead. Every time, you know, instead of taking money out of an account that's really important to you, use money that you can lose, because it's possible to happen, especially if you are, you know, into the fear of missing out, not on purpose, but that was the emotional home we lived in, was the fear of missing out. Because then all of a sudden, as we were buying some and holding some, so we had 3 coins, we had Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum, and it just took off. So it was like, did you buy in today? Did you hurry up? It was like so fast. It went from 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, because we started in September, just to give you an idea, September of 2017. And then it just went like parabolic up to 19,000. And we bought some at 16,000. And I remember my husband and I were sitting there, and this really, when you talk about emotions, watching it go astronomically, you know, up, and then turning around and having a correction, and it not being a 2% correction or a 3% correction. It just decides in one day to like plummet, and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, you watch your money go down, and now it's worth half. So there was so much. So then we got the fear of missing out to watching your portfolio decrease drastically. So we learned all this. So we thought, okay, we're going to get through this. And I remember we had kind of a date on New Year's Eve. This is the worst time to buy any altcoins. But we said, instead of buying Bitcoin, let's diversify and buy a whole bunch of altcoins. And this was at the peak. So we took, I don't even remember how much it was, maybe half a Bitcoin worth. And we bought all these altcoins and watched them go down to about 10% of their value. So I'm telling you this and sharing this with you because what I've learned since being in the group that has been absolutely invaluable is something called a stop loss, something called, okay, the cost of my investment is going to be X amount. And you can calculate that before you go into it. So you don't have to have this, wow, it keeps going down, it keeps going down, it keeps going down kind of mentality like we did because we didn't understand that you can hit the sell button. So that was a big learning. So we did kind of everything the wrong way, got involved, very emotional. We fought with each other over it. It's not supposed to do that to a relationship. We're like, you're doing the wrong thing. He says, bye, bye, bye. And I'm like, wait, because I know, in my heart, I was an engineer for 10 years. So I know there's got to be data, and I know there has to be indicators and things that you can look at and trends that would say, hey, maybe this is coming, or maybe to slow down and just wait, just hold, or quickly sell at maybe 2% loss or something like that. So we learned so much of what not to do in the beginning, and some of it has been painful. But the one thing we did do between 2018 and 2019 is buy some when it went down. So we continued to get the concept of, if we have money that we, again, because of losing some, aren't afraid to lose, again, let's dollar cost average, so that as it comes back up, which it has, and thankfully our portfolio has doubled since early 2019 to now. So we're up, 100%. So that's great. But some of that is now getting back to where we were originally. So there's a ton of other little stories I can tell, and you guys, and little nuggets that I've gotten out of the group, because my understanding of crypto was like Swiss cheese, and we jumped in head first without really having any good information, which is what I'm so grateful for this group for, because it's really helping to be able to fill in those holes and say, oh, wow, this is a fundamental. This is why this is helpful in what to look at for what's coming, instead of always being on the back end and looking back and going, oh, I should have done this. I should have bought, I should have sold. So it's helped take out some of that, a lot of the emotion. So this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely glad. I love interacting with you guys in the Discord and on the larger group too. I think we're up to 350 people, which is really cool. And yeah, it's just, I never really knew to expect emotions to be, the driving force behind whether or not I'm successful or not. Now, granted, I think there's a lot, that comes with just the education and trading. And like you said, knowing the tools you have, whether it's how to read technical analysis, whether it's how to read indicators, all the indicators you have access to, websites that are out there that will allow you to see, what percentage of what coin is in what percentage of the wallets, like I think I was chatting with somebody in another section that we were just kind of discussing how on Glassnode, it was something like 78% of the chain link that exists, is in 1% of the wallets, like 1% of the chain link wallets. Now, that's not to say anything good or bad. That's just literally like a metric, behind that particular altcoin. And that happens to be, I think, the same, with a lot of altcoins. So it's like similar to investing in a startup. You got founders have a lot of shares, friends and family have a lot of shares. And then you got like first round investors, and so you kind of go through, and then eventually when a startup company gets to where it would ever be accessible to somebody of the general public, the shares are definitely not as accessible at the prices that they once were, and in fact, like in the crypto world, a lot of times the scary thought is that it's kind of like the price is driven so high that if that much, of the asset truly is, under the management of just a very small group of people or a small number of wallets, like the fear is there when you see what they call a whale, transfer money into an exchange, because the only reason you would do that, and I just saw that with a particular coin that I'm waiting to buy, is if they're going to sell off, and usually sell off ends up being a reduction in price. So for me, as I watch a whale transfer an asset, in the million plus range, into an exchange, I'm like, ooh, if this guy sells whatever, this much of this token, maybe stand by for, what might be a little bit of a dump or a good entry position on that token. And a lot of these, I think, I'm really evaluating for a longer haul position. Not that, that I don't really consider myself so much a holder as I do a trader, but I think there are certain coins that like you fundamentally go in on and you feel that they're going to do really well in a bull market. You let the winners win, as we had mentioned earlier, and then just pick your exit point really well and don't let emotions take over when you see it retracing. If it gets to an all-time high, especially some ridiculous all-time high, perhaps you should sell, or take as much profit as you want and just let the rest ride. I mean, you don't have to, it's not all or nothing. You don't have to sell everything just to like secure your wealth, whenever it comes to selling. And it's the same thing when, people buy or sell a Bitcoin. Like I think a lot of people don't understand that you can just buy like a half a Bitcoin. You can buy a quarter of a Bitcoin, so you can actually get started at a much lower level, or you can jump in and you can buy 10 Bitcoin, there's just really not a limit on that. And it's just your ability to conceptualize math, and numbers that really, I think, allows you to trade really well. There's no, to me, like I said, there's just been no greater challenge or test in life than really like digging into this space and trying to understand it and, adjust to a world where it exists and come out on the other side successfully with a really, really powerful, ROI that's, changes your life, So we were kind of talking about, I think in a PM, I had mentioned to you not too long ago, probably earlier today, just that I kind of see the cycle repeating itself. And, I have a lot of just probably the colleagues, associates, partners, whatever you want to call them, in some cases, mentors that I just agree with, in that I do think we'll probably see a repeat of what we saw in 2017. I personally, just personal opinion, believe that we're just getting started, because in 2017, I think it was, the market cap in that, all-time high was 20,000 for Bitcoin. And then the market cap itself was somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 billion. And right now, even though we can look in the rear view on some of these success stories that have had 20x already, and done really well, gone from a half a penny to $1.50, or whatever the case may be. The crazy thing is the market cap right now is still under 400 billion. So I feel like we have a lot of room to go, and Bitcoin is still only at 60% of its all-time high value. And unlike 2019, 2020, now we're dealing with a world that's post-halving. So if you look at, the stock to flow ratio that was kind of put out by a guy named Plan B, we're right on track, which is really kind of crazy. I mean, we have this little healthy correction, I guess you could call it that. It's literally at this point, last I looked, like $500. But, we're trending upward. We're in an uptrend. I mean, we could be headed to 13,000 or 15,000. And you have to be ready for it to retrace back to fill in, the CME futures gap we were talking about that's at 9,600, 9,700. So anything's possible. But I think if you live in a world where you are able to successfully sell close to the top, rebuy back in, if that's your plan, on any major movements, and or, set these stop losses or these conditional orders that will, go further into, then you can play it in as safe of a manner and as statistically, powerful and safe of a manner as possible. And I think that's what it sounds like you're kind of, doing differently this year that maybe you weren't doing in 17. 17, it was like going to the casino, and 20 is like, no, I'm actually investing.
Yeah. That's 1,000% correct, because we were gambling before and lost a lot. And it's amazing, the mindset. So as you were talking, I traded Ethereum during all of this weekend, and I took half the Ethereum and I sold it, and I bought back in lower, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I just wanted to share that to get started again trading any of this emotionally and mindset, it took 2 years because it wasn't not painful to lose significantly. So it took a lot. And the first trade I did was the Bitcoin. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I just traded all the Bitcoin I own. And then I thought, well, okay, we got through that. And I'm really embarrassed, but I'll be honest, because this is how I grow. I watched my phone almost all weekend long. I kept checking like every little while. There are such things as limits and all those things, but I couldn't not because there's my first one. So we traded that. And then I thought, well, you had planted a seed about a possibility that maybe there would be a correction. And I'm watching the trends. And when you look at some of the apps, you can see all the coins and you can see the trends that are coming. And so I was like, yeah, everybody's in a downtrend. And I'm starting to pick up on things like kind of whatever Bitcoin does. Some of the other alts seem to follow. Some of them are inversely related. But so I was like, okay, maybe since Ethereum went up quite, it was quite a bit, 20, I don't remember, don't quote me on the numbers, but it took a significant increase over the last week. And it was starting to do its own correction without being led by Bitcoin. So I thought, well, maybe this would be a great one to trade. And you had talked about it in the group. So I went ahead and sold and I bought back in lower and I was super excited. And the second one, I thought, well, maybe we're in the middle of a larger correction, and I sold and it immediately sold it not at the right time, and it was still good, but it was immediately going back up. So I thought to myself, oh my gosh. And it's all in the mind, stuff thinking like, well, how much should I let it go up before I just buy myself back in? And I didn't have this thought through before I did it. So this went on for a little while, and I stopped myself and I was like, wait a minute, how can I make this work? I asked myself a different question to try to interrupt the pattern of, oh my gosh, this could turn bad. So once I asked myself a different question, I actually figured out that I could split and make two different limit. I set a limit up so that if it continued to go up, that I would sell it at 449. And if it continued to go down, I'd sell half of it at 449. And if it continued to go down, I'd buy the other half back in at 408. And I went to bed and I said, either way, I'm going to win because the way the math worked out, I was like, I'm going to win and I'm going to sleep. And one of those was successful. So yes, changing my whole mindset, one, asking myself better questions, and two, making sure that I have a plan before I execute, because, it took an act of Congress. I talked to you, I think 1 hour 2 times in order to get the whole process of trading started. But now I'm challenged, and it's really exciting because there's such a huge opportunity to, harvest this fruit and take advantage of everything that's going on, and all of you experts. And so as I'm learning, I don't know what percentage of this is emotional, but I would say it's up there, like 70, 80%. There's technical, I don't know what your opinion is on how much is emotional and how much is technical, but so yes, everything.
If I can do the technical analysis. Yeah, I was going to say, if I can do the technical analysis, but my emotions don't allow me to act on it, then what good is it, And it's the same when you're setting a stop loss. If I know that I have this tool called a stop loss that I can set, but I'm really not sure where to set it, or where am I willing to part ways with this asset, or where am I willing to rebuy back in because my shorting strategy really didn't work the way that I planned, what am I going to do? Like when I woke up the other day and Bitcoin's at 12.3, whatever it was, I was like, I need to sell. Like I need to sell right now. And everything in me was like, made it difficult to click the button. But you go to sell, and then you have to be ready that this thing, like in a matter of 5 minutes, shoots up to 12.6, or 12.5, and you just kind of made a mistake, and you have to be ready to like buy back in. Maybe that wasn't the local top, and it's not going to retrace from there. It turned out it did retrace from there all the way to 11.6. So it turned out being, like a $900 gain per Bitcoin. If you jumped in on any alts, then the gain was, exponential, because some of these alts dove, 30% or something like that since then. Bitcoin only dropped about 5 or 7% maybe altogether. But that to me is a really interesting strategy. If you truly can line up all the indicators, sell at somewhere in the neighborhood of a local top, and then jump back in, when the time is right. Sit in tether, and then when you do maybe like a trailing stop buy, and then you buy when it's like it hits the peak bottom and it jumps back up 5%, that's when you buy. The cool thing about it is one of the things I've always told myself is double-digit losses can erase triple-digit gains. And that's something that it took me a while to wrap my head around, because the fact is it's a lot harder to make up ground on the upside, right? If you lose 50% on an asset, you go from an asset being worth $100 to $50, and you lose that much, you have to get a 200% gain to get it back. So the math really works out, I think, in a way that can protect you when it comes to stop losses. Did she get? Okay, you weren't on my screen for a second there, so I thought we got disconnected. But yeah, so sometimes that the math can really work out to where it's that simple. Double-digit losses can erase triple-digit gains. Because you could literally have 160% gain. Then how is it that a 99% loss would be so powerful? If you gained, to put it in perspective, if you gained 500% on an asset and you got a 5x or whatever that is, but you lost 99% of the big gain, like you erased everything and then some. So the math works out in a really interesting way. So I'm I think the math works out in a way that those stop losses on shorts and buys can work to your advantage. But you can't be scared to buy back in when you made a mistake and the asset keeps rising. And then you have to know the difference between the limit orders and the market orders, because the market orders come with slippage, and you could end up buying at different prices on the way up, because you're just basically telling the exchange, fill my order immediately at all costs starting now, and it's like, okay, for anybody that happens to be selling that asset or that product, you're going to buy it from them until you get your fill. So yeah, there's so much to learn, and we don't even dabble, so much in like leverage, like margin trading and things like that, which brings more risk to the game, more reward to the game. But the U.S. Doesn't allow margin trading, so there's some things that I'm sure they're working on it, trying to get it to where U.S. citizens can participate without having to go through a bunch of loopholes to participate in margin trading. But as of right now, no matter where you go, if they know you're in the U.S., like I think the SEC just doesn't allow it. So at any rate, yeah, emotions are super powerful. And I think you're right. I think we have a massive opportunity in front of us, maybe as long as, 18 months, 24 months. I think there will be moments in time where people think the bull run's over, or they've gotten such a great win out of a certain asset that they need to sell out. And it's going to be very, very similar to buying, Ethereum at $8 and then selling it at 60, because you're just like, let's say you sell it at $64 and you're like, I just 8x, But in the big picture, in the macro, Ethereum went to $1,200, and you're like, wow, what a poor decision I made, And those are the challenges. I think that people, will inevitably make some mistakes along the way, but the more I think good decisions we could make, the more successful we'll be in the long run. And that's why I wanted to start this group, because I was like, I think if I know how to do this, it should be like find a way to teach people and show it, to others. It's such a space that allows for such creativity, So anyway, well, any final thoughts that you want to share? I know we've had this thing running for a little while, but I mean, I figure if you're into it, you're going to watch, and some people will tune in for 5 minutes and be like, I have no idea what they're talking about, so I'm gonna go watch YouTube and cats, or whatever. So, what are just final thoughts that you have that you'd like to share with people?
Oh, I think that. I'll echo what was said earlier about asking questions, because I get embarrassed. There are certain things that are talked about in certain terms, and I'm trying to soak this all in and actually learn how to do this. So what I'm working on, my own personal philosophy is, you can feed a man to fish. You can feed a man a fish and you'll feed him for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, you'll feed them for a lifetime. So my husband was like, hey, why don't you just get a signals company and just use the signals? And, I don't want that. I really want to learn how to do this. And I really am grateful, and I trust the people that are here that, everything is a risk. You can get information and you can not even execute it correctly. So I think this is exactly what I was looking for, and especially with the patience that everybody's had with all of the questions, because there is different levels of experience. So that's what I would definitely, share, is that I've felt very welcomed being a beginner. I would say, even though I've dabbled a little bit, I haven't, done everything the best and the most optimal way. So I think it's just great. So ask questions, and I'm available. I have, my information is in the group and Discord, but whatever experience I had, I would be willing to share. And, that's the most wonderful thing about this group and being here, is just the help and support. And this is really exciting time. So I think that's the best.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's why I broke the Discord up to where we have beginner, discussion, intermediate discussion, and then like trading and, veteran discussion. So if people want to jump in there, it's not like you can't. It's just like, know that, theoretically, that's what we're trying to limit the content to. And then we've got the alts and BTC and, stuff like that. So it's been pretty cool. But I appreciate you jumping on. Just one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to read some notes that I have. So if you want to continue watching, I'm going to distribute some info I got from a guy that runs a pretty much like a Bitcoin management fund. I think very highly of, and I think minimal investment in his is you have to be holding 100 Bitcoin, which is pretty much $1 million for him to manage. And so I was just on a call where I got to, hear some of the 6 things or something. I think it was 6 or 7 things that he, would want to warn people about, mistakes he's made since 2012. So I'm just going to share those, as we wrap up the video. But I appreciate you jumping on, and thanks for sharing and being vulnerable. I too, I've shared a massive amount of losses with you. Top 5, financial mistakes. I diversified my mistakes into everything from e-commerce to cryptocurrency to, different places. But I made some significant losses just based on bad decisions in crypto too. So I think that's the only way that, that's a good way to go into this next market, because you're a different person when you've seen anything put $1,000 or $10,000 or $30,000 into, and you saw it, go down by 90%, whether it's come back up or whether you just had to part ways with that as a loss, that changes you, and you're a stronger person on the other side of it for sure. So I appreciate it. And I'm just going to share these and then wrap up. Thank you. All right. So I'm just going to kind of wrap up. Like I said, I think we had gotten most of the technical difficulties out of the way toward the beginning. Thankfully, right as soon as we were interviewing Ramsey, I think we got them squared away, and then we've been pretty smooth since then. So I'm going to just kind of read some of the lessons that I've gotten from some really, really strong people in the space. Again, one guy manages a fund where minimum investment is 100 Bitcoin. Another one, extremely extreme influencer in the cryptocurrency space. So one of the things that he mentioned, this is the hedge fund manager, so to speak, is you probably, from a financial, a traditional financial advisor standpoint, you probably don't want to invest more than 5 to 10% of your net worth as far as asset allocation. It's an extremely risky asset class. There's definitely a lot of risk that comes with it. And I would say the less knowledgeable you are about the space, the less you should probably invest in it. If you are 100% up on your tech and you understand everything about it, then there's people that have gone as far as putting a majority of their net worth into Bitcoin because they flat out believe in it more than they do the US dollar. So he had mentioned 5 to 10% of your assets is probably a place that you might consider. Everybody's different. Like I said, some people maybe doesn't need to be that much. He said you also need to understand, where you're at from a knowledge perspective, but also from a time availability standpoint. How easy is it for you, to trade, to sell, like to do the things that you need to do, to maybe watch the charts, to maybe monitor public sentiment, to find, good coins, whatever the case may be. And maybe this is the same in the stock market, but I do agree it can consume a lot of your time. So you have to have a good strategy for how you're gonna, really like how you're gonna distribute your time across all the different things you do. Like in my life, I've got, family. I think you've got business, you've got spirituality, you've got health, you've got, nutrition, you've got to find time to eat. I mean, you got to exercise. So there's all these different things that vie for your time. And so you really have to find that balance that makes you happy. I think a lot of people are prone to, negative feelings just because of what's going on with COVID-19 and just the world right now. It's probably easier, for a lot of people to be more of who they really are. Like worried people worry more, stronger people find a way to stand out and do something. If you're angry, you probably get angry faster. And so, just be cognizant of that. But you also want to consider where you are with your understanding of tech as well as regulation, right? If you know what to expect from a regulation standpoint, really on a global scale, then that's going to have a lot to do with, how much you should invest into this space. Number two, biggest problem. Okay, so the number one mistake, or one of the top 6 mistakes, was putting too much of your net worth into it, right? So 5 or 10% of your assets, probably no more than that. And again, this is not financial advice. This is just what I got from somebody who I trust as far as their advice. Number two, having no diversification. He was recommending, if you have 100,000 in the space, you should probably have maybe 10 different assets. It shouldn't just be, one thing. I heard somebody talk about a decent strategy being 60% Bitcoin, 20% Ethereum, 20% altcoins. So, you have to decide, that's just one random way to do it. You have to decide what's right for you. Number three, unsafe asset storage, leaving crypto in an exchange. And then secondly, losing your keys. So if you lose access to your funds, they're gone. You are your own bank. So you have to kind of consider that. Leaving crypto in an exchange. If you were in the space in I think it was 2014, there was an exchange extremely popular called Mt. Gox, and basically a lot of people lost a lot of their holdings in there, and they will never forget it. Number four, trading constantly. Markets are manipulated a lot in the short term, so try to avoid over trading. Right, know what you're doing. Have a strategy to increase your Bitcoin or maybe increase your US dollar value. That's kind of what our group focuses on in our Discord chat, is really just kind of making sure people are able to accumulate Bitcoin, because we believe in Bitcoin. So we're trying to stack our Bitcoin as opposed to our US dollar. We figure that if we stack our Bitcoin, and if Bitcoin climbs the way we expect it to, we will essentially be stacking our US dollar as well. But we see more strength in Bitcoin, I think, for most of us who are in there. So again, leaving your crypto in an exchange can be dangerous. You want to limit the amount of crypto you leave in an exchange. Number four, I already went through that. Sorry about that. Avoiding pump and dumps. A pump and dump is where the price or value of a coin gets manipulated to the upside because a massive amount of people injecting money into the coin. And then as it rises and it gets to a tipping point, the people in the know sell out of the coin, leaving other people holding the bags, other people holding the asset. So now they have the asset, but the value and the price action was manipulated in a way that the asset is much, much less valuable than what that person purchased it for, which a lot of times, was at the top or toward the top. So be careful of pump and dump schemes, coins without any fundamentals, coins that don't make any sense, or you haven't researched and they're just, booming for no particular reason. And it's tough because that stuff requires time. Next, he had mentioned, he actually believes in buying and holding, spending more time doing your research on projects, purchasing, at discounts when you can. Number five, he had unable to distinguish signal from noise. Number six, caught in emotions. To me, this almost should be number one. But, again, most people buy high, they sell low instead of the opposite. They go in with fear of missing out, and so they chase what we call green candles, buying toward the top. Now, this can be skewed in a bull market, but it's still kind of scary to buy the local top. So you just kind of have to know what you're doing. If you're going to buy the top of a pump, or when a coin has gone on a run and its value has increased exponentially in a very short time, then you definitely want to make sure it's a coin that you expect to go much, much further up, so that you still had a great entry, even though you bought at the top of a local, rapid increase in value. Next, FUD is another one. So a lot of people will sell out of a good project when they experience, through the news or their friends or anything, any kind of fear, uncertainty, or doubt. This is oftentimes created by the media. Any report that you see out there that was put together by any given entity or person could be real or it could be fake. This market is subject to a lot of manipulation. So they'll circulate a report like the Zeus Capital report. I don't know if that's real or fake, but the attempt was to short Chainlink and to have an effect on price action to the downside. I think it worked, in that short interim, and then Chainlink exploded and went all the way to 20, just about, and then it kind of has come back down since then. So just got to know when to get in, when to get out. Or if you think that, like for instance, Chainlink, let's just say you think it's going to go to $1,000, you need to be ready to just hold on and shut your computer and just check on it later, maybe every quarter or something like that. But in that case, you wouldn't have to watch it daily. And then lastly, your philosophy towards crypto. Do you have a belief in crypto? Do you have a conviction toward crypto? So if you have a conviction and you just really believe it's the future of money, it's going to be a lot easier to put a high percentage of your net worth into the space. So I want to wrap it up. I don't know if we have anybody live. We've gone pretty long. But this was just like literally a test run. I feel like, in hindsight, the first 15 minutes were a little choppy, just trying to get things together. We learned a lot. For anybody that is watching, anybody who watched the whole thing, even on a replay, let me know what you thought in the comments. And at the same time, I think the next time we do this, it's going to be, 2-3 times better and less choppy. And so we're really excited about that. So I appreciate your help, Ruben, with streaming this for me. And hopefully it came out in, the couple different places we put it. Next time we'll probably go on YouTube and Twitter, and we'll just kind of, continue to, put out this information to whoever it resonates with, right? Some people will be, I've been trading Bitcoin since 2012 and, I'm not interested in that. I'm looking for this type of content. It won't work for them. And other people, just like I said, they want to watch YouTube and just watch videos with cats, and just Bitcoin is too confusing and too hard. And, for that reason, it's, it's just not a good fit. And so they're not going to watch us either. But I want this to be something that resonates with the right group of people. And we want to change some lives with the Digital Investor IO group. So if you guys are in here in the group, or if you're seeing this on my page, I just want to say I appreciate you guys. And we'll have more of this, I'm sure, in the future, whether it's once a month or twice a month or something like that. We'll just keep getting, sharper at how we do it, and it'll come together more fluidly each time. So thank you very much, and I hope you guys have a good evening. Take care.